Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 35 of Impact Statements, your favorite Magic the Gathering podcast, brought to you by the fine folks here at Clan Impact. Hi, I'm Jake, and I've got a returning face we all know and love, Alex. What's up, Alex?
What's going on, guys?
Glad to have you back. And for the first time on the show, one of my favorite Magic players, Legacy players, all around great people, Nick. What's up, Nick?
Hello. Good evening.
So, Nick, you are a legacy expert. Alex, you are also a legacy expert. I am not. This is not my format, not my show. So, but after the last rounds of BNRs, we kind of talked a lot of standard last week, and I wanted to dig more into the other format that got BNR changed, and that was legacy, a format that Wizards seems to remember exists. I don't know if it's quite, as paid attention to as it needs to be, but it is a sanctioned Magic the Gathering format, maybe not acknowledged by the parent company. But Nick, Alex, what's your legacy experience? Give me a little run through with it. We'll start with you, Alex.
I think that my experience just kind of stems from when I first started playing, like 2015. The shop I played at when I was a young lad really only had a legacy scene, so it was show up with budget burn and learn the format. Eventually, I was in high school, had nothing to spend my money on, so me and a couple of my buddies, we pooled our money to buy some legacy staples, and we were playing legacy. We were playing a lot of Delver and blue-white control and whatever we could, and we only had about 2 to 3 duels per deck, but it made the whole thing function. And I've played on and off since, and I love the format. I think it's great.
What was the price of duels in 2015? If I was going to buy a Trop, how much would a Trop cost me?
I think a Trop was like 350, for a beaten up one, which, I mean, I would take 350 for a Trop right now.
Oh, yeah. That'd be a really good price.
That would be great. But luckily, I just kind of had to, pool my money with some buddies. We bought a couple Tundras, a couple Volks, couple UCs. They were beaten up. One of them was kind of yellowish. We don't ask questions as to why, but it passed the green dot test, and that's all we needed. So I've since graduated to the big boy ones.
That's the thing of duels, right? Like, you can talk yourself. Maybe someone had to use this underground sea as toilet paper, but as long as it works still in a sleeve,
yeah, I mean, it was sleeve playable. That's all I'm saying. Nobody could tell until it was in their hand, and then we won't get into that. But
Nick, I hear you talking to a child, but really quick, give me the rundown whenever you have a sec. Tell me about your legacy experience. How'd you start?
Yeah, I was a long time legacy content consumer, so I knew a lot about the format starting 2017, 2018. And just had aspirations of maybe one day playing. And then you and Kevin one day, it was in 2022, gave me the excuse I finally needed to make the jump. I was able to borrow some duels for a team event. I sunk a ton of time and energy into grinding on Moto. I got coaching from Bosch and Roll, and I went 0-4 or 0-5 at the team event. I totally sunk the team, but it was addictive, using force of will, fetching out actual tundras in a volcanic island. I was hooked. And in the 4 years since then, it's just kind of taken over as my primary format. It's about all I play on Magic Online these days. It was a long time modern leagues, just playing whenever I could. And now I couldn't tell you the last time I played modern on Moto. Yeah, here's Teresa. Okay, go back to bed. And yeah, so that's been my primary format since then. And in the last couple of years, I've been able to kind of merge work and play, and been traveling and sponsoring legacy content. So I sponsor officially the Eternal Glory podcast, free advertising for them, but that's also a source of clients for me. And then I also travel to events and help put on events.
Nice. I love that. I mean, that lets you stick into a little more of the community, because the legacy community is pretty deep, right? It's I think of all of the Magic formats, because you don't have the luxury of, being one of the big three, you get pushed to the wayside, especially because you're not standard, you're not pioneer, you're not modern, and you're sure not commander. But thank God you're not commander.
Yeah,
but you do use commander cards
because legacy has a high barrier to entry, and I acknowledge that it's got a high barrier to entry unless you're in a 100% proxy friendly environment, which BCDL is, by the way. But we'll get to Buffalo Chicken Dip in a minute. Yeah, it's tough to get into, and that high barrier of entry means that there's not a lot of support from Wizards for paper events, because paper events are necessarily self-selecting and exclusionary. So the events that do happen are very community centric. Like once you're in, and you don't have to show up with your own duels. You don't have to show up with real duels, as long as they're clearly fake. But yeah, it's like the events themselves are very community centric. So people get to know each other. You recognize on Magic Online, you recognize usernames that come and go, pop up pretty regularly. And then in real life, like you'll see a lot of the same people and get to build relationships and friendships over that time. So it's really cool.
That's awesome. Well, before we get into our deck lists, we got to thank today's sponsor, Impact Gaming Center. Impact Gaming Center is St. Louis' premier hobby destination. Located close to the heart of St. Louis, Impact Gaming Center has all the TCG supplies and signals you might need for any of your favorite card games. Along with TCG supplies, the shop carries Legos, Warhammer, and board games to meet all of your hobby needs. Make sure to head on over to impactgamingcenter.gg for anything you might need to level up your next game night. Looking for more paper Magic content? Make sure to check out twitch.tv/Impact Gaming Center and Impact Gaming Center on YouTube. And starting now on Wednesday nights, you too can head on over at Impact Gaming Center, starting at, I'm sure it's like 6 or 6:30. Check the website for more information to play some awesome Legacy cardboard.
Let's go.
We're going to talk the format. We're kind of doing this to also shout that out for the shop.
That's cool.
But
notably proxy friendly.
Someone had to pull Jeff's arm real hard on that one.
I don't think it was that. I'm not gonna out anything. Let me just take a quick peek at it's a simple text exchange. I believe I texted Jeff because whenever I found out that this was kind of picking up, I knew that I had some friends that would be interested, and I said, hey, it's a weekly Legacy IGC proxy friendly. I have some friends that would come and need to know. And he said, and I quote, I'll allow it, which is just so cool.
I love it.
I don't know. It was just like so much gravity to those words. But yeah, proxy friendly, which I think, and Nick mentioned, proxy friendly events will not only bring more people, because even people who own those cards, sometimes they don't want to bring them because they're expensive.
Yeah.
I've played with proxies before, fully owning, some reserve list stuff, but yeah, I think it's great that it's going to be proxy friendly. And I know that there's some other events in the area that they fire every few months or so, like some bigger things, like the occasional win a duel, and those will be proxy friendly, and I think that's great. And so having a weekly Legacy event at a big store, I'm always a huge fan, especially being at Impact, so I'm excited for that.
Well, I'm super excited for it. I don't play a lot of Legacy, but
we're going to learn you something.
Maybe today we'll find a deck list that's finally going to
We're going to get you going. Hey,
Death
you can play on that.
Is a real deck in this format, Jake.
Nick, we're already getting ahead of it. I might have looked at the winning list from the league one of the leagues we're going to talk about, and it might be my favorite thing in Magic. But so before we get into Legacy, let's talk a little bit about what we've talked around before of format identity and power level. And the core thing we always tie power level of a format is, what does a format's mana have access to? And for standard, that is non-fetchable lands outside of basics. And if they're going to be dual lands, they have to have some type of downside. Going on for modern gets access to fetchable lands that can come in untapped at a cost. And Legacy's format identity is you get untapped dual lands at only the cost of using your fetch land, which is incredibly powerful. I mean, the difference of losing 1 to 3 life in any format for just fixing your mana is incredible. But the other thing that Legacy gets access to that Modern doesn't is Legacy's utility lands, I think, are a step above what Modern could ever hope to have. Right? That you have this sloth of utility lands printed from Alpha to like end of Urza block that they're the most powerful lands almost ever printed, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Wizards didn't know what they were doing with lands for the first 10 years of the game, really. And those are the lands you get to play in Legacy. Nick, what drives you to Legacy?
Legacy, for all of the misconceptions about how fast the format is, and I'll grant that the format can be very fast at times. Legacy rewards really small decision making. And part of that is the mana bases, and there's no like end of turn fetch my tapped shock land because I don't want to pay the life, and that throws my mana off curve. Your decision making, especially in the first few turns, is so incredibly important. And if you're playing like a colorless stompy deck, like with the One Ring and Mystic Forge and Karn, the decision of like, do I lead off with Ancient Tomb or Urza Saga? Do I lead off with my dual land and hang it out there knowing that it's going to get wastelanded, or do I fetch a basic right away and make my spells awkward? There's a lot of small decisions that get packed into I don't know where Bun Bun is. In your room somewhere. Good night. The reality of being a dad who loves Magic. So the blue decks are especially part of like Legacy's identity. You've got Brainstorm and Ponder and Daze and Force of Will, and that's like the first time I cast Force of Will. I was like, oh, this is exactly everything I've ever wanted. Ponder and like setting up the top 3 cards in my deck and drawing or shuffling and drawing the right one. All of those little decisions add up, and there is an immense amount of agency that I feel while playing the game. And that makes the strategic decisions I'm making, the tactical decisions I'm making, the game plan I'm trying to form and evolve over the game, that makes it really engaging. And that's something where, as Modern especially becomes more and more linear, that's something where I've really found like my preferences. And you get to play with really powerful cards at the same time. Like fair decks get up the beanstalk. Like, Force of Will with an up the beanstalk out, and instead of paying 2 cards to counter your 1, like now I've drawn a card back and we're like at parity. Have a couple beans out there and you're now ahead. Like there's a lot of really powerful engine cards that you just don't get access to in other formats, all backed up by one of the most efficient mana systems in the game. It's like everything I've ever wanted out of Magic, and it's all condensed into this really, really engaging format.
Part of me thinks Legacy is the way Magic was meant to be played. And I mean, okay, I have played Legacy. I played Legacy a fair amount from like 2019 to 21. I owned a Gaia's Cradle. I owned Scrublands. I owned Savannas at one point, and I sold them all because COVID hit. And I was like, well, Moonbase Market closed, and that was the Legacy scene in St. Louis. But yeah, I mean, this is 4 years before Impact opened, even. And when you can't know when the Legacy scene is going to come back. Like I sold out my Legacy stuff. But Alex, tell me about your Legacy.
So my Legacy, my love and affinity for it became pretty prevalent whenever I started playing other formats. When I started playing Standard, I was like, this is really cool because it's the fundamentals of Magic. Really, it's seeing creatures and attacking, and it's fun, and flying matters way more in that format than anything else. I'm like, okay, Standard's cool. Modern is kind of the format I stuck with the most because it got the most love out of the most cards that I was playing with in 60 card constructed. It had the ease of access of Standard while also maintaining the love from the parent company, but it was also not necessarily capped as heavily as Standard was. So, but Legacy to me was always very, very similar to what Nick said. It's about the micro decisions, and it's about the fact that I think Legacy is the way it was meant to be played, in that it's the most amount of decisions you can possibly make. You have the most access to all of these crazy different lines, and sometimes it feels telegraphed, but there's so many different crazy things that happen over the course of a 10-game tournament. A 10-round tournament. It's like, wow, I've done stuff that I've never done in, hundreds of hours of testing even. And I think that's one of the cool redeeming things. And yeah, I think it's cool just playing with really high level, powerful cards that you don't play in any other format, If you play Commander, I have my 1 Force of Will. I got 3 in my hand, And as a blue player especially, I love, Nick was, kind of going off. He was like Ponder, Brainstorm, Daze, Force of Will, all my, these are all my buzzwords. So it really called to me as the type of player that I am and how I enjoy playing Magic, as it's very competitive. And if you like that engagement, I think you have fun with it. And if you like the really cool, oh, my deck just did the thing, it has that too with some really cool combo decks, which we'll get into shortly. But yeah, that's kind of where I sit with Legacy and why I'm so attached to it.
Yeah,
But I still play
agree.
everything else,
I mean, the format, the way you get to play in Legacy is so different than every other format, because, and I feel like Wizards has done a lot in the last few years to try to make Modern feel a little bit more like Legacy.
Yeah.
And everyone says, "Oh, Pauper's Legacy light," and to me, I'm like, that is so false because the one thing that Legacy gets where Pauper fails, is Legacy has checks and balances, and it has cards that help you fight back against problematic decks. Yes, deck cards like the Fantasticar are a little.
We don't
too
talk
good.
about it. That was 6 weeks and it didn't happen.
It was a mistake.
It can't hurt me anymore. It can't hurt us anymore, Nick.
Yeah, I think it's worth talking about in the context of like how these things impact Legacy as they come out, though. But the checks and balances are a key portion, are a key feature of the format, especially like Wasteland checking a very dual heavy mana base. Like there's real costs to stretching your colors. There's real costs to being dual heavy.
And having free stack interaction keeps a lot of things from being absurd. Where Pauper, when Storm gets broken in Legacy, there's cards to fight it. When Storm gets broken in Pauper, there's nothing to fight it.
Yeah, I think that one of the key components of Legacy is there's always going to be people that love and hate it, and the people that hate it will complain and say, I don't like the fact that you can win on turn 1. And I think that part of the answer to that is Legacy has always had this wonderful component called Force of Will, and that alone is enough to keep those decks in check. Those turn 1 combo decks like Oops All Spells, or what it once was, and Storm, they're just not as big of a problem because it's the only format that really has the ability to gauge, and actually check those decks. I mean, yeah, Modern has Force of Negation now, but that doesn't solve everything. We can't counter a Thassa's Oracle. You know what I mean? So I think that that's a lovely aspect, and I think Wasteland is another great example, being able to check the greedy mana bases, being able to check a very hard to interact with lands deck, like with Dark Depths combo decks. So that's one of the beauties, I think, of the format.
Can't Force of Will Thespian stage, right?
Nope.
But you can't Wasteland it.
Yeah, I think that it's worth noting that the Force of Will element of like being a major check against deranged combo, that goes so far as to like what we've seen, especially in the last couple of years, when it comes to the curation of Legacy, is there are times when Force of Will becomes a way to back up doing your absurd thing. And that's part of what made Car bannable, is that the Car decks, the Fantasticar decks, and like if you're not familiar with Fantasticar, because it's not in Modern, it's not in Standard.
Because you didn't hear us on the last episode. Because you didn't listen to me.
You didn't listen. It's this 3 mana artifact that after your 4th non-creature spell becomes 4/4/4 flying cars with haste. And that's, on Legacy, you go, turn 1, Dark Ritual, Car, Bauble, Lotus Petal, or whatever. And now you've got, on turn 1, especially like on the play, you've got 16 power coming in. And the decks that played that also got to play Force of Will in Daze. And the previous busted blue-black deck before that was Dimir Reanimator, which is a deck that I played and did well with its entire lifetime in the Legacy format. And going, turn 1 Entomb, turn 2 Reanimate with Force Daze of Will backup, like Force Daze of Will backup, Daze and Force of Will backup, like that was what put it over the edge. So Legacy's like checks and balances is such a finely tuned system that the moment the checks become like offensive weapons, that's when bans happen most often.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, anything else before we start talking about what does the format look like right now?
No, I want to jump in.
Yeah,
cool. I want to jump in.
So
take me to the promised land.
Let's go. No. Boom. So this is the Goldfish page. I don't love Goldfish analytics a lot. I think Goldfish analytics get a little skewy. I also have decks pulled up, and I think the realistic numbers probably fall somewhere in the middle, right?
Yeah.
Because 16% Dimir tempo seems really, really high to me.
Yeah.
Especially when you compare it to decks, which is at like 9.5 almost.
Yeah. I mean, my gripe with Goldfish, and I mentioned this when we were talking about the BNR, is they're not accurately representing the meta post-ban. And bans happened, last week?
Yeah.
So this isn't going to accurately show the Mystic Forge / Tron decks, because
I guess it's 30 days. We could.
I mean, even if it went back, it's still not going to show. Like,
right, because the decks
just kind of get pulled off. But the thing with this is, and with Mystic Forge / Tron, is that deck was prevalent before the card was printed. Granted, it was being boosted by Candelabra, which then got banned, but then there was a moment where Car was there, and it gets a little confusing. But there's still Tron players who are playing without Car, without Candelabra now, and it should be noted they should be represented in the top 10. But otherwise, it's a relatively, I would say, accurate representation of the format, minus the actual share percentage of Demir Tempo.
Sure.
But
well, let's break down some. Do you guys want to talk about deck lists? Is there anyone what you guys want to talk about? I think Demir Tempo is probably the name. The two to me is Demir Tempo and Is It Delver? Because Delver is a word that gets to exist in Legacy that does not get to exist in Modern. Let's start off with Demir Tempo.
I mean, you should drop back down to like the last 30 days because it's not in the same.
Yeah.
There we go.
I mean, if you click on the Demir Tempo list, and you know what, I even go so far is if you look up Oklahoma City Land Run, I'm not gonna plug, but if you can find that tournament,
that's deck search. I'm sorry,
yeah.
This should be on.
Nick and I actually traveled to Oklahoma City for the Land Run event, which is Eternal format.
Wrong.
Huh?
Date range needs to go earlier.
Just like July, just the month of July. We traveled to Oklahoma City and we got to play in the.
What was the date of it?
July 11th, 10th, 12th? Something like that. Oklahoma City Land Run 26 Legacy Open, and go down to like 90th place.
No, go back
to 92nd.
Go back
92nd.
Up to 10th place.
No. Go back down. Go to.
Oh, look at that.
We'll get there. Go to 92nd.
92nd. What is this bad player? Oh, I'm sorry. Good. Okay, gamer.
Yeah. This is effectively Demir Tempo. This is a very stock list of what this is. All right. This is the basics are. It's a tempo deck. It's about representing a form of a threat and protecting it and interacting as much as you can. And you don't have to put the threat out turn 1 or turn 2, but it's going to happen. And it's about where you interact. And the way that it works is you can potentially go turn 1 Tameo. And the thing that people love and hate about Legacy, you can flip Tameo on turn 2 with just a Brainstorm at any point. Yep. And it's awesome. I love it. The other aspects are playing a Brazen Borrower or an Orcish Bowmaster to inevitably cheat in a Kaido Bane of Nightmares, and that's your threat. And it plays the full suite we just talked about. It plays Daze, it plays Force of Will as stack interaction, it plays Thoughtseize as hand disruption, it has a really good suite of removal, it has Fatal Push, it has Edict, it has the actual Petty Theft from Brazen Borrow itself, and it's just a pure tempo deck. That's all this deck has ever known, and it's all it's ever needed to be. And we've seen variations of it across different formats. Demir midrange and tempo in standard with whenever Kaido got printed, and doing the same with modern with Frog. And you did all of that, but it's all born from this. And it's the most fair deck in the format. It keeps everything in check except pure aggro decks, which are kept in check by combo decks, truthfully. But it's one of the things I love, and one of the things I'm really happy to talk about is I love this deck, and it's kind of the pinnacle of where you go in terms of Legacy. I think it's where you end up after a certain point. Everyone takes a turn in Demir Tempo, and I love it. So
you get to play the most Legacy, right? Like you're not playing some generic combo deck. You're playing, I'm going to play a Tameo, try to flip it, interact with you with your free counter spells, Orcish Bowmaster. I mean, this card, probably one of the, I think Bowmasters and Tameo might be the two biggest. I mean, besides Car, we're not going to talk about. Well, Car is gone. Look at Tameo and Bowmaster is probably the two biggest creature additions to Legacy. In the past, probably.
I think in an argument, you have to say some of the Ajani-esque cards that you see in the Pride decks, but truthfully, yeah. I mean, you see Tameo and Bowmaster in other decks as well. Bowmaster's seen in the Mardu Cats deck, which we'll probably get into. But yeah, I don't see why the answer wouldn't be Tameo or Bowmaster.
Sure.
At least some of those are still legal.
Alex, have you touched on Flow State yet?
Yeah, the Flow State's actually in my list here. I played Flow
Yeah,
State
yeah.
in
I was
OKC.
like, have
Oh,
you
Flow.
talked
Oh,
about
yeah.
why it's
So
important?
Flow State is important for two reasons. One, the Card Express Federation exists in Modern, and this is kind of a weird thing that people have a misconception about with Legacy is powerful cards in Modern are not the same as powerful cards in Legacy. Express Federation is very powerful in Modern, but it was broken in Legacy because of its ability to not only potentially cast things like a counterspell for free during your turn, but also the fact that you had Bobble as a problem, and you could play your land. And the card advantage in this format is more important than I think any other format possible, except maybe Commander. And it got banned in Legacy. It still exists in Modern. It's perfectly fine and viable in Prowess, and the occasional Is It Murktide gamer will play it. But then it got banned. Flow State gets printed this year, and it's the heir to this because it's effectively doing a similar thing where you get two cards out of the top three. It does put them into the hand, but it also relies heavily on the graveyard, which the Expressive Federation was already doing when it was in Is It Delver. Is It was already in a graveyard intensive deck. So Flow State just kind of naturally was able to do it. The cool thing about it in this deck is if your opponent was thought seized on turn one and you left up Force of Will to counter something, you got to Flow State on turn two for full value, which is just absolutely disgusting. Because you would get to reload your hand after you just interrupted theirs and disrupted their whole combo. So that is what's really shaping the format right now. It's not so good that it needs to be banned because graveyard decks are checkable, which I think is why it's going to survive and not be absolutely obliterated like Expressive Iteration was. But it's the reason why after all the bans happened with the car, Demir Tempo and Izzet Delver look to be two of the top 3 to 5 decks in the format.
Yeah. The 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 reason flow state is important and Demir Tempo and a lot of pretty much any deck that wants to play it is Legacy is based so much around disadvantageous exchanges. So like Daze is free, kinda, but you have to return a lane to your hand. Force of Will, Force of Negation, take 2 cards out of your hand to take care of one of their cards. Ponder and Brainstorm only replace themselves ultimately. And so having a card that's cheap, that's like costed cheaply and easy to turn on, like Flow State, that puts you ahead on cards is like that is the key to a lot of these fair decks is having this, if it's not if it you don't have an instant sorcery in your graveyard, then it's just a bad anticipate, really. But ultimately, like it not only puts you back ahead on cards, it also doesn't draw them because, especially in Bowmaster Mirrors, Bowmaster is such a like puts an enormous amount of pressure on anything that says draw a card on it.
Especially when that draw cards is Brainstorm and
Yeah,
you suddenly your opponent goes from nothing on the board to 5 power.
having Bowmaster to Brainstorm is one of the sickest. Like the first time you do it, it
Chef's
is.
kiss.
There's no real appropriate way to describe how amazing it is. You just have
And
to
then
do it.
and then because Legacy's busted, you can lose anyway. Like, yeah, but oh well.
Yeah, I mean this is the quarter of Legacy. One of the like pillars is free interaction and free counterspells, and that's been true of Legacy
Yeah,
pretty much forever.
Pre Modern Horizons 1 or 2, whenever you got the pitch elementals, and then MH1 where you had force negation, they were doing it long before Modern Horizons was a thing.
There's a reason why Force of Negation is called Force of Negation because of Force
Pays
of Will.
homage
Yeah,
to Force of
the
Will.
Modern Horizons Force cycle is all named after Force of Will. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
The something that I really like about Demir Tempo here, and this is a deck that I'm strongly considering playing this coming weekend at an event in Columbus that I'm traveling to. This is fair legacy like at its peak. And Alex, you can interrupt me if you were saying this while I was attending to a little girl who lost her bunny. But like this is fair legacy. Like you have Thoughtseize to check their hand and disrupt their game plan and build your own game plan. You have creatures that need to attack to win. You have a planeswalker that can slowly grind ahead on value, but that makes combat matter. You have Tameo, which can either pull you slowly ahead on clues or flip quickly. Like there's so many things that this deck can do that are ultimately fair for legacy, from a legacy standpoint. And you're not doing anything broken. You have to earn your wins. And this is the epitome of, I think, fair blue magic in legacy at this time.
I did almost verbatim say all of that, but I was so happy to listen to it again. I love talking Dimir Tempo. We could have done this whole
Dimir
pod
Tempo
on Dimir Tempo.
It's a very fun deck to play, and I love my Bowmasters, and I've got like this metal plate Lucas Graciano army token that I use. Yeah. It's sick. Yeah.
Let's jump over to we're talking about Oklahoma City land run. Let's jump up to your deck, Nick, because looks like you did pretty dang well.
This is my 10th place finish list. I also 5-0'd with it the week ahead of time. This is, I'm gonna be totally honest. This is an anti-car deck. Over 50 matches where thereabouts before the car ban, I was playing with this deck. 50 matches total, probably between 10 and 15 against Doomsday and Dimir Carr, and I dropped maybe a few games over all those. The 6 forces, there's 2 Force of Negations, 4 Force of Will, plus the Spell Pierce, plus Teferi and Wrath of the Skies and the One Ring. Like this is a hard control deck that is has its sights set on card,
beating card,
and I and the deck played like it. Geist of St. Traft was a secret house all weekend. I am not bringing this to Buffalo Chicken Dip.
I was gonna ask because you did so well with it.
I loved playing this deck. But if I'm not this is a very narrow metagame call.
This was such a sick call,
and it worked. I beat up on Show and Tell. I beat up on Dimir Carr and Doomsday, and I went splitsies with a couple other fair decks like Dimir Tempo, and
can you tell me why?
My other loss was to the Painter combo, but this was such a fun deck to play.
Is it is it mostly just because you're playing more counter spells you were good versus Carr? Was it?
Yeah, it's 6 forces, and you have really stable mana, but you also this is a 4 Wasteland control deck, which does not happen very often. And the forces main and the side, you get 4 Consigns and 2 Fluster Storms, that's nuts against Carr. There was a lot going on in this deck that was just sight set on never losing the Carr, and I didn't. I never lost a Carr.
This deck was such a cool meta call. I wish it was real still.
Yeah,
because it's so fun to look at.
The one deck that I could never beat, maybe across somewhere between 5 and 10 matches, I could never beat the Azorius Tempo deck. With Thalia and Quantum Riddler, and that's the other deck I'm strongly considering for this weekend.
I would love to pivot to that actually, because
I was gonna switch up
if you look at the meta, right now, and like I mentioned, pay some respect to Mystic Forge combo. This is one of the newer decks to the format, realistically, because this is one of the few times I genuinely think that you have a true combination of some shades of modern included with some kind of respect to an old archetype. And it stems from that one card right there called Stifle. This is what I would consider the modern day version of Stifle Knot. And Stifle Knot, I mean, don't get me wrong, still sees play at the occasional legacy event. Stifle Knot was born because you would play Stifle and Phyrexia Dreadnought. ETB, kill the thing, but other than that, it was a 1 mana 12/12. You stifle that trigger, it exists. And what that reminds you people of, especially our modern listeners, is scam/blink decks.
Yeah.
And if you look at the top again and you see the two cards that make those blink decks what they are, and that's Felia and Quantum Riddler. If you go to the instance, you'll see not only Stifle, but you've got Consign in the main. They don't play Ephemerate because it's just a little bit easier to it's a little bit harder to interact with
What is
Consign.
Ephemerate doing, right? Like you
Yeah,
are.
the Ephemerate's just like not doing anything compared to the Consign and
You're not trying
Stifle.
to blink as many things for value.
Yeah, but this
having-
tempo deck is just like generating crazy value, and I can see it being a struggle for control decks because they generate such a really good valuable board presence while maintaining a very strong suite of interaction that's almost comparable to blue-white control.
Yeah, I really like this deck. A lot of times Stifle and Consign can go towards keeping your Warped Riddler around. A lot of times you can Stifle or Consign like Felia attack, blink out something important of theirs, stifle the return trigger. This deck, if I'm like making a modern parallel, it's somewhere between like Goryo's and Esper Blink. I think a lot of the like when I play this deck, the feeling I get is similar to how I feel when I'm playing Goryo's in Modern, which is a deck that I've piloted a fair amount. Just because the disruption's really powerful, and the like more aggressive disruptive game plan is also very powerful. You just don't get Atraxa in this deck.
I think one of the main reasons I wanted to talk about this deck is, first of all, completely agree with Nick. It has shades of two different modern decks. And I think the most important thing is if you look at this entire list and you take out the Tundras, if you're a modern player, you may have just a good portion of this deck. And I think this is a great introduction to Legacy if you're able to play in a proxy allowed setting. I mean, Swords to Plowshare, realistically, not that expensive of a card. Stifle can get a little pricey, don't get me wrong, but
This has
if
never
you want,
been printed again, right?
yeah, I mean, it's got
It's got
those
a couple
printings and that's fine.
printings, but
Yeah, but you can always sub out Stifle for the extra 2 Consign, and that's very viable in a lot of ways for an occasional F&M thing. And if you get into, I mean, $10, you know what I mean? $10. That seems reasonable for getting into a new format.
yeah.
Oh yeah, that's not that bad.
$7 for the future site. Mine
This
are
one
Yeah,
looks
if you
so
wanna-
good.
Oh goodness, get this thing away from me. But no, I think that this is a very good deck to walk into. You know, it's you get to play the cool high value cards, and you don't have to know every single thing about the format quite yet. It's a good way to learn the format, and yeah, you will have to eventually buy Force of Wills, but I mean, they're just nice to have. And I think that, and I'll give, this is the one thing I'll always credit Commander for. Commander means more reprints, means cards like Force of Will get less expensive over time.
Yep.
And I'm thankful for that. So, yeah, this is a cool deck.
Let's jump to
Give it to me.
Delver.
Can we before we we're just skipping over the unfair decks here, because there are cool things.
Yeah, we do need to
with
talk about them.
Reanimator and Sneak and Show.
Oh.
Like this, the current builds of Rakdos Reanimator are like really explosive and can be a lot of fun. Like Raph and Mikey as legacy staples. Who would have thought that this would be the case? It's getting out Atraxa and Grizzlebrand and Archon with your turn one, you can go Dark Ritual, Thoughtseize Myself, Reanimate. Like there's so many lines to this deck that make it it's disruptible. It's not overpowering. And you can have your Grafdigger's Cages and Rest in Peace and Surgicals. But I think this is a really cool deck. And because it's so much more disruptible without the Days Force of Will, like blue black deck we had even as recently as last Eternal weekend, this is what Rakdos Reanimator should look like, and this is, I think, a reasonable place for it to be in the metagame.
Yeah, I played against this deck in OKC, and it was very respectable in a couple ways. Yeah, it's very glass cannony. If you disrupt the combo, they're kind of just sitting on their hands. But they have so much hand disruption, as you can see. They have Thoughtseize, Unmask, Collective Brutality, Cabal Ritual, or Cabal Therapy, that if they play one of those on turn one, sometimes you just can't do anything, especially if they go Dark Writ into doing something. It's pretty terrifying. So
Well, and there's also times where they'll like get out an early Atraxa, and then like you can plow the Atraxa, like Swords to Plowshares the Atraxa, and then grind back and win because so much of that deck is just air.
Yeah.
If you go down, there's like one card I really want to highlight. Where is it? Stronghold Gambit and Show and Tell. These Stronghold Gambit is hilarious. I love this card so much, and I love playing against it because I can sandbag like a Bowmaster or Felia or Tameo in my hand and blow out my opponent every time. It's
What a weird card.
it's like Show and Tell where you each get to put something into play maybe, but it's less like it's even less symmetrical. And if you happen to have a low cost creature in your hand and they're trying to put in Grizzlebrand, congrats on absolutely fizzling their like 2 mana
it's so
nemesis
cool.
rare.
Yeah, this is a card of the ages.
Speaking of unfair decks, I would love to take a look. I know we're kind of bouncing around. I would
That's
like
fine.
to look at Alurin, and I'm gonna call this an unfair deck because it has the ability to go Show and Tell Atraxa or Show and Tell Omniscience. But the key of this deck is the namesake Alurin. And if you click on Alurin, this is a very weird card that I'm sure people outside of Legacy will actually know. It's a 2 and 2 green enchantment. Any player may cast creature spells with CMC 3 or less without paying their mana costs, and as though they had flash. This is a really cool card because it interacts with both sides. It's a symmetrical card, and it's really cool. You get to flash in your Bowmaster for free, you get to cast in your Tameo for free, your Brazen Borrower, your Ocelot, whatever you want. But if you go to the top, it mostly has this card called Acererak. Am I pronouncing that correctly? Acererak.
Yeah.
Whatever. I'm not respecting this card. And if you click on Acererak goes effectively infinite.
With Alurin, you get Alurin. You venture into the dungeon.
Yeah. So you venture into the dungeon, and we'll keep it pretty quick. What you do is you free cast it, and then part of Alurin or Acererak is it bounces back to your hand after you venture into the dungeon. And what that does is you just repeatedly cast this spell, repeatedly venture into the dungeon, and eventually you'll just kill your opponent.
Yeah, one of the dungeons has one of the rooms says each opponent loses 1 life and you gain a life. Yeah. And that's like, if you establish that you can do this infinitely by just never completing Tomb of Annihilation.
Because there's 3 of them.
Then there's three different dungeons you can do with this. The modern equivalent to like the modern fixed reprint is Primal Prayers for Alurin, by the way. So if anyone's ever like opened up some MH3 and found Primal Prayers, like that's
you go build that deck. I implore you.
Nick has tried. I can tell you.
I know people who've tried, and apparently it's not that good. But in this format, it's quite good. A friend of ours, Connor, he did really well with this deck, and he's continued to do really well with this deck. It's not, as you saw, it's like 10th in the meta. It doesn't get as respected because in its own colors, it's not the best Show and Tell deck. It's not the best unfair combo deck, but it's so good at the in-between.
You are trying to resolve a 4-mana enchantment.
Well, it's really not that hard when you play the mana that you do, and they play cards like in the sideboard, like Carpet of Flowers, City of Traders. They play Carpet of Flowers in the side. Really good interaction. Sweet Veil of Summer is great because there's so many blue decks. It's completely viable in the main. This deck is almost built to kind of prey on Dimir Tempo decks, Izzet Delver decks, the fair decks, because they're outvaluing you a lot of times, and they're very good at the combo aspect, and they're a little bit more protected than another unfair deck, which I think we should go look at, which is Sneak and Show. And I think Nick probably would know more about this deck than me. If you have any beloved insight on this disgusting
So Sneak and Show
deck.
is named after Sneak Attack and Show and Tell. Show and Tell is this great classic sorcery where each player can put a artifact, enchantment, or creature or land into play. And then Sneak Attack. So like, I guess I'll go back to Show and Tell. Sorry, Jake. The trick of playing Show and Tell is to put in something better than your opponent, right? Like if my opponent casts Show and Tell and I put in a Murktide that's just a 3/3 and they put in Atraxa and draw 5 cards, or put in Emrakul and I untap and I'm scratching my head like, okay, I actually can't beat an Emrakul, sorry. Like it's not supposed to be truly symmetrical. So you have Show and Tell, and then you have Sneak Attack, which lets you essentially through the breach. Through the breach is the fixed sneak attack here, where you put a creature into play, attack, and either like get their ETB trigger with Atraxa or attack trigger with Emrakul, deal a bunch of damage, gain a bunch of life, draw a bunch of cards, or be casting these things with omniscience. This is a very this is the among the combo decks right now, like this, and then what we just saw with like Alurin and Omnishow. Like these are the combo decks that have Force of Will as their backup. So you jam Force of Will, or you jam Show and Tell. Your opponent tries to Force of Will. You Force of Will their Force. Your Show and Tell resolves. You get Atraxa. Your opponent's down multiple cards, and you just reloaded your grip. Like that is the game plan of these decks. They can be very fast, they can be very powerful, but because they also have things like Stock Up and they can play Flow State, they're also, in the Cantrip Cartel, Brainstorm Ponder, Lorien Revealed, like all of these cards means that if you are not putting meaningful pressure on them, forcing them to act maybe before they have protection, then like you can run over them. Otherwise, these are decks that will just outlast you. And that's why they're really good against fair blue decks, is because Dimir Tempo, for all of its strengths, does not usually present a very fast clock. Blue-white Control, the deck I was playing at Oklahoma City, like that was a slow as hell deck. But like that's where these decks really feast. They can lose to faster combo, or just a more aggressive like curve out strategy like the energy decks.
Yeah.
But
Do you want to talk about energy? Because that is something that's wild to me, that the Boros energy package of Modern is just good enough to make its way into Legacy.
It is simply good enough. Plus you get the band Amp Raptor. You get Voice of Victory is way more powerful in Legacy than it is in.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
You get Swords to Plowshares. Ball Therapy can sacrifice your cat token to a Johnny.
I didn't even think of that. That's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's other cards here that are like in energy shells, like Sand Scout. Like if you go to the other energy shell back in the
if you go back to the main page of Goldfish,
the Boros energy to the left.
Oh,
this is like true Boros energy.
You
the
get
green splash is just for Once Upon a Time.
Sand Scout lets you fetch up a desert card. There's this Lazotep Quarry that lets you reanimate, essentially eternalize creatures. You can fight desert. You get Wasteland. This deck is aggressive, it's fast, and it has just enough disruption to knock other decks off their balance, and make it very hard to interact with. I think this is any modern player knows the challenge of like 1-for-1 removal in the face of Guide of Souls, Ocelot Pride, Guide of Souls, Ocelot Pride, a Johnny.
It's just a losing battle.
That is so hard to keep up with. And Legacy has, like, they're sweepers, but they are not played as aggressively as somewhere like Modern.
I think that this is actually, I mentioned earlier with Azorius Tempo, I said that was a great deck to get into Legacy with. I think this is the best deck to get into Legacy with. Not only do you have the big three, Ajani, Guide, Pride, but you also have the Voice of Victory, which is just naturally found in Boros Energy, and you get to play Amp Drafter again, which is cool.
Yep.
You get Thalia, not that expensive. Sand Scout, not that expensive. You get to play Once Upon a Time again, cool. Sword's not that expensive. All of the non-land cards are not that expensive, which I think is
Most
great.
modern players will have
Exactly. See what I'm saying?
60% of this in their collection.
And the fetches are with it goes without saying. The basics, wastelands aren't exactly cheap, but they're not crazy expensive. You can definitely get a playset relatively easily.
$16. That's
yeah.
so cheap.
Exactly.
See, let's find the best one.
Yeah, I mean, I personally have two playsets. I have the Eternal Masters, and then I have the Mark Pool Secret Lair. And I mean, they're cool. It's a cool time, great card. And then if you can proxy the duels, you're cooking. This is a very viable, super cool deck. I lost to it in round 1 of Oklahoma City's Legacy Open. A good buddy of mine, Sean, he did really well with this deck. I think he plays top 32.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's really cool that this deck is what it is. I mean, aggro needs to have a place in the meta. It keeps combo in check pretty sustainably, in my opinion, and it keeps tempo and control decks really on their toes. And I think that I kind of flip those around. It's more that this keeps control in check and it keeps combo on their toes, which I think is great. So
yeah, this deck was one of the biggest winners of the card ban because card decks just like steamrolled it. So this deck has had an appropriate resurgence, and it's an aggressive, taxing, disruptive strategy that is right at home in the format.
It's also something that I say a lot when we talk about it in Modern, is it top decks better than almost any other deck in the format. Because they've got, you just looked at it, you saw 8 different creatures that you can play that represent a threat, whereas you're playing Dimir Tempo. It's like, yeah, I just drew Brainstorm, which is cool because I get to look at the next 3 cards that I'm going to have, and they're all still not good. Or, you do that with a combo deck, and you're like, yeah, this Dark Rid is great in my hand with the Lotus Petal and land that I also have. But this, you're bound to draw something that's going to keep you alive in late games and also just put crazy pressure on in the early game. So
one of the legacy callouts that I want to talk about just for a second is how cool of a format you get where you can take that random card that was slotted in as like the 99th random rare in a standard commander deck. And that gets to be like Sand Scout gets to be a format staple in a deck because it does something so specific with another random rare that was printed in another commander deck. Like,
I think
that is one of the coolest things of Legacy. We're into our last deck. There's a card I want to talk about because I think I think there's a list of things you could talk about, things that are in Legacy that could be in Modern. Should or could different. Yeah, I don't know. That could be in Modern. And the Lassatep Quarry Sand Scout is that's a sick combo.
Yeah. I do want to talk about is it tempo, but if there's some other unfair deck that we need to talk about first, you let me know, Nick.
Now we can do is it tempo and then maybe wrap up with Doomsday because it still exists.
Yeah. So is it Delver is the oldest shell of a shell that I know of, except for maybe Storm or Burn or Blue Eye Control. This is the absolute granddaddy of them all in terms of blue tempo decks. It still plays Delver of Secrets, a 1-mana 1/1 that can flip to a 3/2 with flying if you reveal an instant or sorcery from the top in the beginning of your upkeep. It's so good still. Even Dragon's Rage Chandler, which is a modern staple still in prowess and saw a lot of life in Is It Delver or Is It Murktide, is still not necessarily as good because it's very preyable with Graveyard Hate, which you find with Flow State Murktide. And I'm just so happy Delver exists. But the main function of this deck is it's very similar to Dimir Tempo in that it's blue value, blue counterspell. As Nick called it, you get the cantrip. What was it? The
Cantrip
cantrip.
Cartel.
That. And that's super
Ponder
cool.
Brainstorm.
Ponder Brainstorm. Now it has flow state, and it just generates an amazing board presence with things like a 1-mana Delver or a 1-mana Darcy. And then, I don't know if it was showed in this list, but it's recently pivoted to a combination with Corey Steelcutter.
Yep.
And it's got this prowess aspect to it because it plays Mishra's Bauble. And if you get to these turns where you're like, I want to bolt a creature, and if you try to protect it, I'm going to trigger this Corey because I'm going to counter back. And all of it still struggles to deal with Murktide Regent. Still one of the best creatures in the format, in my opinion, because of how quickly this deck can fill the graveyard. It's just a 2-mana, sometimes 5/5, sometimes 6/6, but obviously the big payout is a 2-mana 8/8 with counter magic to back up. But I think the most interesting thing about this deck is, of all of the greedy mana bases, this deck is the one that I think survives the most because it's a 4 wasteland deck most of the time, and it plays a beautiful suite of fetches. It does play 4 Volks, it plays the 1 basic, but it's one of the only decks that I feel like can truly operate off of 1 basic going into different turns. If you have 1 basic going into your opponent's turn and you draw that fetch land, you have 2 mana for, even if it's just for 1 turn, and you can make so much happen with it. You can flow state to find another answer. You can play 2 threats if you need to. And I think the best thing about the format and how this deck shapes into it is something that Murktide in Modern has always had, and you can ask many different Murktide players, is I think it's always had the strongest sideboard capability. And when you go down, you see it hits everything. It truly does hit everything. You have Consign for Storm and colorless decks. You have Grafdigger's Cage for Reanimator, Hydroblast, Pyroblast for its necessary evils. Surgical does the same thing. Meltdown for Affinity, and Sewer Cam, which I think we should talk about too.
Yep.
And then Price of Progress just to punish those lands decks. And after all of it, it has its bad matchups. It doesn't do super well against Alurin, or sometimes Doomsday can struggle with. It really does get beaten up by lands. But even then, those matchups aren't unwinnable. It doesn't feel 90-10. It feels 75-25. But if you draw right, you interact properly, and you know, make sure that you stack the Stifle to the top of the deck, you can do anything with this deck. And I think that's why it's remained one of the best. I think something that we can mention is it's going to, even though it's not represented now, is it's going to have Bilbo, Thief in the Night, added to it.
Yeah. Bilbo's creeping in.
Yeah, I mean, Nick, you probably remember the days of Dreadhorde Arcanist.
Yeah. For
And
the
I know we all
sake of
flashbacks to
time,
that.
we should probably like touch very quickly on Sewer Cam.
Oh, we're good.
Doomsday.
We have infinite time.
We have infinite time.
Well,
I'm in the back of my head. I'm just like, when's this over so I can go log on to Moto and play some Legacy. That's
the best reason to want to cut this.
And that's one of the things that makes Legacy unique.
It may Sewer Cam combo bottom left next to Mono White Initiative.
Yeah. One of the things that keeps Legacy unique is that so much of the world of Legacy is on Magic Online. Like the paper events are few and far enough between that the event, like the format really lives and breathes on Magic Online in a way that a lot of other formats don't. Sewer Cam is a new iteration of a classic Legacy deck where Sewer Valence Cam taps in, or like untaps your Goblin Welder, which lets you move artifacts in and out of your graveyard. Goblin Engineer is the Modern Horizons-ized fixed version of it, because Goblin Welder itself is such an insane combo engine. But you have a way to make infinite mana, infinite damage with Legion Extruder. You've got your Lotuses and your Opals, Legion Extruder, Soul Cauldron, Hawkeye's Bow, and Epheto Alchemist also go infinite damage. This is an extremely high synergy, complex deck that, thanks to the power of cards like Urza Saga, have really fair pivot plans, where you can just get beaten down by some constructs. Like you have the graveyard aspect of their combo set taken care of, or you have a pithing needle on Phyto Alchemist or Goblin Welder, and they just beat you down with constructs. This is a very high synergy affinity-esque, draw cards, take game actions dot deck, and it's a lot of fun to play against.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that I'll take just a couple seconds, and I think this is the third deck I would recommend. If you're a modern player and you played Surveillance Combo, or if you more specifically played Grinding Station Breach, you would love this deck.
Yeah.
This is so complex. If I tried to pilot this deck right now, I think I would have the largest headache of all time afterwards. So better Magic players than I play this deck, and my friend Jacob. But besides it, it's a really cool deck, and I think that it's really cool to get into if you can get into it. Probably not on MTGO. It's very click intensive, I've heard.
This feels like a lot. You're never finishing. You're going to finish game 1, but you're never finishing game 2.
Proficient pilots can click quickly.
Yeah.
Well, boys, what are the 2 things that are guaranteed in life?
Death and taxes.
We couldn't get out of here without talking about this.
Yeah. Death and Taxes is a longtime classic legacy deck. It's adopted Yorion. It's got enter the battlefield creatures dot deck. This is nowadays you still have the classics of Flicker Wisp and Thalia and Stoneforge Mystic. And then you've got more recent bangers like Overlord of the Baelmerk, which provides some absolutely crushing inevitability. Solitude, White Orchid Phantom is another excellent addition, further pressuring mana. This is, if anybody ever has like old Aether Vials from playing modern Taxes or modern Merfolk still, theoretically a deck you can play in Legacy, but this is a very reasonable deck to take to any Legacy event.
If you have a Dimir Tempo
on it
friend
for a while, and it's a lot of fun.
If you have a Dimir Tempo friend and you hate them, you should build this deck. And yeah, I'm talking about you, Kevin.
This I love playing against Taxes. It's a very it's just a very strategic, grindy matchup where you have to know what matters. Like Thalia, if you're playing something, fairish and blue, is Thalia going to be my fight? Almost never. But the key cards of like Overlord and Stoneforge and Yorion, those provide some incredible inevitability.
Man, not having Yorion on Modern just like hurts Death and Taxes so much. I don't understand Wizards. My hands can go to Burger King. I can shuffle my deck. It's fine.
I'm still not over Nick saying, and I quote, "I love playing against Death and Taxes."
I do. I mean, I'm just
that quote's going on a wall somewhere.
I created Jun. Like grindy matchups are just like, give them to me.
Give me pre-war Fulmaware in Modern. This card's so good.
No.
It's from the best universes beyond. This card is awesome. It's good with Feely. It's good with Flicker Wisp.
Guys, I know we're pressed for time, even though Jake said we have infinite time. Can we take a quick peek at Doomsday, just so I can acknowledge that it exists?
Yeah. This barf of a deck.
People that complain about turn 1 win, they used to complain about Oops. Now they complain about Doomsday. We don't have to talk about it. I don't want to. We have to acknowledge.
I think Doomsday is a cool deck. Like maybe I've just gotten too deep in the sauce. Doomsday, I think, is like the legacy combo deck that has survived everything.
Forever.
Especially when we get Thassa's Oracle. Like this is a very just thought intensive deck. And I think the people that play it, and play it well are usually in my experience, they're people that are way better at math than I am. And figuring out how to disrupt the combo of Doomsday, exile your deck, make a 5-card pile, and then win with those 5 cards, almost always with Thassa's Oracle. But there is such a give and take, push and pull with this deck that I think it is a staple of Legacy, and like Car slotted right in because of all the other spells that this deck normally plays with
sure.
Dark Ritual, Lotus Petal, etc. But this is I think like the home of true spell combo in Legacy, and will continue to be so.
I like it. Well, boys, thanks for talking Legacy. This has been awesome.
Thank you guys.
Nick, really quick, do you want to tell us about Buffalo Chicken Dip going on this weekend?
Yeah, Buffalo Chicken Dip Legacy is a Legacy series of tournaments that usually happen in Columbus and Houston, although other locations may be coming up in the future. It is a full proxy friendly, high stakes Legacy tournament. So the event in Columbus this weekend, the Saturday Open, is capped at 124 players, hit the cap weeks ago, and yeah, we're gonna go over there, sling some duels and Force of Wills, and it's going to be available on Twitch throughout the day. There is going to be live coverage. I think the Twitch channel is just Buffalo Chicken Dip Legacy. It's called Buffalo Chicken Dip, by the way, because there is literal buffalo chicken dip. There is a lunch break, which I think more tournaments should do, and yeah, you just, like, in the middle of all of these rounds of Swiss, you take a break, get a plate of buffalo chicken dip and tortilla chips and tortillas, and eat buffalo chicken dip while playing, not while playing Legacy, but between your matches.
No, I heard that you have to use your restricted list cards or reserve list cards to scoop the buffalo.
Yeah, you have to take your bayous and just go.
That's what I've heard. Is that not?
Tastes swampy. Yeah, it's one of the, there's other like Legacy circuits. This is one of the mid-sized ones that is very successful. There's also follow-up events on Sunday where there's like a 60-person Legacy tournament, and then like a pre-modern event that Sunday as well in Columbus, Ohio.
Ew, pre-modern.
I like pre-modern, but we're not going to talk about that today. So yeah, Buffalo Chicken Dip Legacy this weekend in Columbus, Ohio, and it's going to be great. I'm hopefully going to figure out what I'm going to play in the next couple of days. Either Dimir or Azorius Tempo.
You know where you can test that at?
I'm in the middle of a league with Beans, and I just have to play with Beans before I make it.
You know where you can test that out, Nick?
I will not tragically.
Impact Gaming Center this Wednesday.
You can.
7 p.m., 6:30
7 p.m., 6:30, somewhere between those.
Something like that.
I'll be at the 8-year-old soccer practice, but
what the heck?
Where I'd rather be. Sorry,
they're letting you play. It's ridiculous.
I do not want.
I'm
to
still
soccer.
upset.
These kids would run literal circles around me.
Yeah,
I won't play the kids. They're mean.
They're probably faster than us. Is the real problem, Jake?
Yes,
that's true. Well,
they are.
Really quick, make sure you head on over to impactgamingcenter.gg. They've got Tundra's Collector's Edition for, let's check out, give me another duel. Let's see what's Impact.
Trop. We talked about Trop earlier. Let's see what the price is at now. It's
they got a revised for $591 near mint.
That's a deal.
I don't know if it's a good deal on duels, but hey, make sure you head on over to impactgamingcenter.gg for some of your favorite Legacy stables. They've got duels in stock. Jeff loves Legacy. He loves old formats like this. So Jeff is going to make sure that sort of stuff survives. Nick, thank you so much for joining. It's been awesome to have you. Good luck this weekend. Alex, thanks for joining as usual. Great guy. Again, check out impactgamingcenter.gg for some 6 singles. Make sure to check out all the Paper Magic content on Impact Gaming Center on Twitch and YouTube. And coming soon to the Impact website is Riftbound Singles. Make sure to get your over-numbered crocodiles and bad cards there too. Thanks, guys. Have a good night. And I don't care where you're listening, but make sure have a good day, good night. I don't care what it is, but have a good one. See y'all later.
Thanks.